Hello and welcome to JAMP's webinar, University Enrolls One-to-One iPad and School Manager. We are luckily being joined today by a person from a university, but the voice you hear right now is myself. It's Dave Saltmarsh. I'm JAMP's educational evangelist, and I will also be joined by Kelly Watkins-Conrad, a systems engineer who's helping us with the webinar, and she's going to lead a little bit of a technical overview at the end and be here to help answer questions. So welcome, Kelly.
Thank you.
And as I mentioned, we're very lucky to have a special guest. Today we're joined by Taylor Behl, the Instructional Technology Specialist and Digital World Coordinator at Maryville University. Hello, Taylor. How are you today?
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
Great. And one of the things I can say about Taylor is in addition to those roles, she's also very busy and doing a lot of other things. From her work as an instructor also at the university. She's also in a graduate program in cybersecurity. And when she's not too busy, she's heavily involved in the community's music therapy program in that community. And that actually brings up something that Taylor has something in common with JAMP. Our founder, one of our founders, started in, as Taylor did, in a music department and also working as a computer help desk. And so JAMP has a very long history in the universities. It's where it came out of. It's where it had its first customers. And we're very proud that we've been helping organizations for over 15 years succeed with Apple. And today we're going to get into the Maryville University story. But before we let Taylor take things over, I'm going to just mention a couple things because, I'd like to share that, I've been following the use of iPad and even iPod Touch before that for well over a decade. And then in 2014, there was a trend that emerged where we saw some university programs deploying iPads within specific colleges or programs. Both JAMP and then EDUCAUSE actually recognized this trend, and we saw higher education trying to shift the instructional practices to a more inclusive use of technology in that traditional lecture hall. And prior to that, for decades, and my role in technology in K-12 since the early 90s, we looked towards higher ed to innovate when we were trying to do new things. I remember when looking at BYOD, I looked at higher ed for how they were allowing staff and students to bring their own devices onto the school's networks, and we emulated that. And then when we switched to a one-to-one, I also looked for how they were supporting students, the structures they had to support students bringing in, or provided laptops, that is. And then I referenced high ed when I merged the technology and the library programs into one cohesive team. And from the instructional perspective, most of us in the EdTech world have followed the TPAC concept for a way of the convergence between instructional and technology. Instruction and technology, though, has not always been fostered, and that's the one thing we saw that really high ed did not take a lead on, and that's how they change instructional practices through the use of technology. But things are changing now. We're starting to see that change. And, we've seen small groups within universities like the College of Pharmacy or Education, nursing programs, and med schools start using iPads with faculty and staff. We've seen them try to attempt to improve formative assessment, adaptive assessment, create opportunities for collaborative situations that take advantage of the dynamic exploration that they can do with technology. And this story today is about how Maryville takes this and has done it at scale through a system-wide implementation of different services. So Taylor will share with us her reasons for getting into it, the why, the what, and the how and what they've done to transform the learning experience for all students, regardless of the program they're in. So at this time, I'd like to once again welcome Taylor Behl and ask her to share her story of Maryville University's initiative.
Thanks so much, Dave. Well, today we're going to explore the decision making process that kind of led to our one to one. We're also going to talk about what kind of technology we have, what we're offering students, and what they're using, the Apple solutions that we use. We do use different apps for a lot of programs. There are specific apps that we use enterprise wide, and there are other apps that are something we refer to as course specific apps that are geared specifically toward promoting learning in specified areas. And then we'll talk about supporting information technology and educational technology and how we merge those two things here at Maryville. So if we move on to the next slide, there we have about 3,100 students that are part of our Digital World Initiative. So that's going to be traditional on-ground students, and some of them are hybrid students that are taking online and on-ground courses as well. We have about 3,700 devices, give or take, in our JSS that we manage, and we started our program in 2014. So we are coming up actually on 4 years in the spring of next year, and it's been a wild ride. So our decision background. Basically, our president came to us a few years back with this idea of a strategic plan. This is going to be something that we come back to as we continue to talk about our different usage and how we train our faculty and things like that. The strategic plan is based on four concepts that are student centered and that promote digital equity. Those four concepts are an active learning ecosystem, transformational innovation, diversity and inclusion, and the idea of strategic growth. So we'll be exploring all four of those things as related to our one to one initiative. So, as we talk about implementing technology and also including educational or academic technology in that, we kind of have to talk about some of these points that are popping up here. First of all, let's jump into this idea of our quality device. So, we give our students an iPad Pro 10.5 inch. We always keep them up to date with the latest release. So, as new iPads are released, we here at Maryville give our incoming students those new devices. So, as we're on the iPad Pro right now with the Apple Pencil, this is a device that all students will use. It's not something that will only be good for certain programs or for certain types of students, pretty much no matter what your learning style is. Since the iPad is so adaptable and customizable, it really works for the inclusion portion of our Digital World Initiative. So that's one easy way to just hit one of those strategic goals. You also then will move to our quality internet. Without our 40 gig backbone on here on campus, we have quite a large ring that supports our campus. So from the moment you step onto campus, regardless of where you are, you can always connect to the internet. That is paramount concerning our active learning ecosystem. So, without any qualms, students can leave their classroom, take their iPad, find a tree, for instance. This happened in a science class. They found a leaf, they then photograph the leaf, and then they use an app to identify what that is and write a report on that. Just simple life sciences and biology. We also talk about affordances and accessibility, and that kind of goes back to the iPad providing its own affordances. It's automatically accessible and has extreme ease of use. And then the ability to customize the iPad as you need it really helps us promote diversity and inclusion because the iPad does not exclude any type of student from utilization. We also talk about a transformational experience, and there's a couple examples here. Our faculty are they go through a rigorous training program that is created by our director of digital learning, and they go through it's about a semester long process, and they are certified once that's over to create an innovative environment in the classroom, which is what we really strive for, and that goes back to our transformational innovation portion of the strategic plan. Like I mentioned, our faculty are highly qualified. They go not only through a professional development, but they also are innovators themselves in the classroom, and they're taking this even further than we thought that they would. And we'll get more into that as we talk about our professional development a few slides from here. We've also, like Dave mentioned, scaled this across our entire university. So we're not just looking at the education school or the College of Health Professions. We have really made a platform, thanks to support from our president, where we can allow students from all programs to have this experience and have this technology in their hands. And the sustainability portion is that equity is just proven through it can be seen in the classroom. We're going to talk later about how we've innovated in a couple of different places in the active learning ecosystem. As I mentioned, we do give all students the iPad Pro 10.5-inch with pencils. And so what does that do for us? How does this help us as a university? It just provides us with an opportunity for consistency and delivery and equity across users and the device that they have. This doesn't stop BYOD. Students will always bring their own devices, but if we've given them this device, we've given them innovation directly to their hands. And so with these tools at their fingertips, it creates a larger platform for success. So in addition to using iPads, we've also implemented Apple School Manager in higher education. When we went to Jamf Nation User Conference in 2016, we were introduced to this idea of Apple Classroom and Apple School Manager, and it was in pre-beta. And we got together and decided that we were going to make it work. And so after a long pilot last year, and at the beginning of in the spring of 2017, we were able to launch it enterprise-wide as of the summer. So we use Apple Classroom to synchronize the active learning ecosystem and provide an easy way for students and instructors to collaborate and share ideas. So the slide that we were just on, we're going to talk about how we add our classes. It's a process that we've created using the CSV templates that are provided by Apple. And we also use information from our Canvas learning management system. So in addition to those little bits of information, we also are an Apple Distinguished School, which has created a great platform for our educators. We also have 5 Apple Distinguished Educators and growing, and we consistently certify new Apple teachers. So this just is another layer of professional development that allows our instructors to feel like they are in control of that innovative process and that they have a springboard or a platform of support for the things that they're trying to do to engage their students in the classroom. And again, our director of learning technology ensures that all of that happens smoothly and that all of those instructors are supported in these endeavors. So now we're going to talk about our apps for a second. So we give everyone a slew of certain apps. You'll see them popping up here. Notability is one of the biggest apps that we talk about, we interact with, and that we give all of our students. It is a premier note-taking app that's found in the App Store. We found that students were using different platforms for taking notes, and nothing was quite meeting the standard that some of our students were looking for. Some of them needed to pull in diagrams and annotate on them, or PDFs and add information. Some of them just wanted to pull in their PowerPoint slides, for instance, and be able to take notes beside them, while others needed to do audio recording, handwritten notes, or typed notes all on the same platform. So that's when we came together and decided to give every student on our campus Notability. I have seen immaculate notes using this platform from many different students, and it really has changed the way that students learn and interact concerning their note taking and note sharing in class. We also give everyone Canvas, that app, and it's our learning management system. This allows students to get an assignment, do research, create content, and then submit whatever they've created all from the same device on one platform, which if that isn't ease of use, I don't know how iPad could have made that any easier. We also give them the Microsoft Office suite through their Office 365 email accounts that we offer on campus. Explain Everything is another premier app along with Socrative on the other side there that is offered to our students. And then, of course, the Apple Classroom app is given to all of our instructors, and it's automatic that our students will be loaded in. We're going to talk more about that process a little later as well. And then the suite of what would be considered the iWorks apps as well. So you'll say, well, how are you using these apps? You got tons of apps. So it's not how we're using those apps per se. Those apps are used in a myriad of ways, and it's amazing every day. However, when we get into um, using apps and why it matters, it's really interesting to take a look at our journey to course specific apps. It was forged by innovation of our faculty, staff, and students. There were programs that found that there are apps that fit specific needs that will allow students to have elevated experiences while they're learning and then demonstrating knowledge. One of the most interesting things we came up with, if you see in the science bracket near the bottom, there's an app called Caffeine Zone. And this is a fairly new occurrence. One of our psychology faculty is having his students track their caffeine intake for about a week. And once they've collected that data, they're then going to go back and compare that against their own sleep patterns and then come up with what implications that might have for them. I found that to be really interesting. Another great use of our course specific apps is in health and exercise. While you may not think of sports as an academic endeavor, our volleyball team has paired with our information systems and data analysis people, and they're using apps like Volleyball Ace Stats and Volley Maps to track heat maps, to track ball movements and location of attack and different teams. So they can go back and review that information, review that data, and increase their offensive strategies and knowledge for anticipating an attack from specific teams. So there are lots of different ways that these apps are being used on campus. Those education apps in the top are actually most often used by our speech and language pathology team. They're used in class and in actual therapy to help students understand the kind of tools that they have at their disposal when they're in the field. So just lots of good things going on with those. So as we move past apps and Apple School Manager and this idea of even just the basic handing out of devices, how do we get information technology and educational technology to come together? Well, just like that says, we've got to bridge those teams, and that's kind of what my role was created to do. So we come together, we share responsibility for JAMF and our users. We encourage communication. There are meetings that we have regularly to build those collaborative relationships. We are, again, supported heavily by our president, so we get to partner with a lot of other different teams, and having IT and instructional technology right there together side by side makes it much easier for us to partner with people in the library like Student Success and with other colleges and schools here on campus. Um, and in that, we do share that decision making, but that's delegated by your Access and Jamf Pro. So we do separate our users. We have a few super admins here, a couple of general admins, and then we have service desk techs and Apple Core team members who are students that have custom auditing or editing permissions as well. So now that we've gotten over a basic overview, let's talk more about how we get our classes from Canvas into Apple Classroom. So we don't use the same K-12 method, like using sysids or anything like that. Our Director of Enterprise Learning Technology actually helped to develop a script that uses the CSV templates that were given by Apple to take our Canvas output. So we have regular processes that run for Canvas every morning. We've now added this script as a process to fill in those CSVs from Apple. We can then drop those CSVs into an SFTP server, which talks to our Apple School Manager, and then we import into Jamf Pro. So it's a few extra steps, but it is well worth it to give our instructors the ability to have that synchronized learning in their classrooms.
All right. Thank you, Taylor. And so this is Kelly. And so I realize that not everyone has access to the same awesome script that Taylor has. You might be wondering, how can I do this in my environment? Well, at Jamf, we actually have something that's called the Jamf Conduit. that you can use with the SIS importer to get very similar results to what Taylor has. So you're going to be able to find this conduit on Jamf Nation. And within Jamf Nation, we have something called third-party products. So if you go into Jamf Nation, and if you go to the More tab and then third-party products, go ahead and search for the SIS importer. And what's included in this page here, it has the resources in there, which are really great information on how you actually install this. And it's also going to include the Jamf Pro conduit. And with the change in the brand, I realize it says JSS conduit. You don't need to worry about that. It's the same thing. So once we have downloaded that package, it's going to download. And as you can see in here, it has the JSS conduit, which is what you need to launch first in order for the SIS importer to actually be imported in there. And once we have downloaded that, we'll then run the JSS conduit. And then as you can see, it unpacks. And then within the resources folder in there, we then have the plugins, and that's where we drag the SIS importer.jar that is within that same zip file. So I realize it looks a little scary when you look at it this way, but it's actually very simple. And the documentation that comes with it is actually really slick and easy to follow. So once we have done that, pretty much it just does the rest. We can then select our SIS importer from the plugin at the top. We put in our Jamf Pro URL. It works for both on-premise and Jamf Cloud, in case you were wondering about that. And then we just simply find the source file, and it's looking for, I believe it's tab delimited, if I remember correctly. But the extension .txt is what it's looking for. And the documentation, again, is going to show how we want those columns to be set up. And it does have examples that are within that zip file that you can follow too. So as you can see here, you do have the ability to delete your existing classes as well. So if you're looking to do a mass refresh, the SIS importer can help you do that too. So last but not least, the awesome resources I was talking about, these are also included within that zip file. Again, go to Jamf Nation, third-party products, search for the SIS importer, and then all this information will be in that area for you. So that's all that I have. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to Dave.
Great. Thank you very much, Kelly. And let's go ahead and mention that we ended with, Taylor telling you a little bit about what they do to get the information out of their student data system that goes into Canvas to create these classes so teachers can use Apple Classroom. And then there's an alternative way that we've had for quite a while because we used to have a classroom tool. So we have another way for some people that maybe don't, because in K-12 there are a handful of student information systems that people can have a direct integration. And we have organizations that are using this that way. Sometimes we get organizations, and I've been an IT director and instructional technology, sometimes people look at that as being, wow, too much effort, a lot of effort to do, or they think they can't do it. And you've just heard two ways that can be done, not to mention a direct integration if you happen to have a student information system that matches. And I want to go back to one of the first things Taylor said. It's focused on the organization's success. Well, that's Jamf's mission. It's right aligned with what we're trying to do, help organizations succeed with Apple. And that's right where you start. You look at what the leadership's going to be able to do. From there, we've noticed that there's a spirit of change across this university that includes all the stakeholders. This isn't top-driven or IT-driven. The instructors there have been looking for a way to infuse technology, and you've seen that happen. And I'll go to this third part, this consistent delivery format. I've been promoting this for a long time, and there are a lot of other options for people to have out there. And a mantra that I used to use a lot, and today we still hear it, and it's valid, is, it's not about the technology. And that's true. But if we consider that we want to have a consistent delivery format that allows for customization of that experience, we want learning to thrive. We want a situation where everything's not locked down, it's not a one-size-fits-all, and we haven't shrunken to the lowest common denominator, which then creates an opportunity for people to go ahead and, have success. We create that condition. So I will suggest to people out there what they're doing at the university is they are creating that condition for success. And it requires that collaborative IT and ed tech. in so many places I go, and I've been presenting on bridging the gap for years, and I get looks on people's faces like, oh, it'll never happen. Well, it does start with that organizational mission and the desire by multiple stakeholders. And then ultimately, you've also seen that really this program was there to help support the multiple layers of digital equity. So often, we're just looking at that surface level of providing that device. And I think that goes back to, again, supporting that idea of that consistent delivery format that eventually gets you to really get to the layers of digital equity mentioned by Taylor. So it's always an important thing to when people promote some ideas is to get into a little bit more into the weeds of what they're trying to do. So with that in mind, you'll notice that I actually put some slides at the very end that Jamf usually puts in the beginning, and this is a story about what Taylor is doing and the rest of the people are doing there at the university. But I should mention, Jamf has been around. We have thousands of organizations using our products. While we have been supporting the organizations in deploying Apple products and configuring them, the very last thing I want to highlight, because a lot of people don't realize it, and Taylor mentioned it right at the end, this delegated access. We're one of those systems where we took it all the way down to the classroom teacher with our Casper Focus, and today you can do that with Apple, the classroom app, where actually the facilitator or the faculty are managing the devices. But we can always go up to that higher level too. If you want to learn more about what's going on at Jamf and how we help organizations, you can go to our website. We have a great program that Kelly touched on, Jamf Nation, where there's 40,000 Apple systems people or ed techs are also on there. And if you have questions or comments, it's always the first place to go to ask somebody's opinion of what they're doing, and so we can learn vicariously from others. And also, we have a lot, just like this webinar will be posted, we've got a lot of detailed webinars from overviews of how people are using the product to how-tos also to really get you in the weeds if you wanted to. Because Kelly, just hopefully whetted some people's appetite. And I'll go back to that last part. Sometimes we show those things so that if you're not an IT person and you're more of an educator, you know what can be done. And you can go back to your organization and go, yes, we can do this. And here's a great example, a classic example of how you can do. So Kelly and Taylor, thank you. And for those that are joining us, thank you for attending and for your devotion to improving the learning experience for all students. I really appreciate everybody coming in today. You can always reach out to Jamf. You can always, info@jamf.com. I'm dave.saltmarsh@jamf.com. If you have something for me, we're pretty easy to find. I'm going to say thank you very much, and we're going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.